Have you thought about buying some land on Oahu? Well, it might not be as easy as you think. Today, we're going to talk about three things to consider when you're buying vacant land on Oahu. And if you stick around to the very end, I'm going to share some bonus tips as well. And a little bit about myself. My name is David Buck. I'm the principal broker of Harcourts Island Real Estate here on Oahu. And over the past decade or so, if you were to Google vacant land for sale on Oahu, my website shows up normally the top couple results outside of like the national portals. And so what's good is you have someone with boots in the ground here. And so often I get someone with that big dream and ambition of what they want to do. They want to build their own home. So we're going to talk about three things to know and consider when you're thinking about buying land on Oahu. Okay, so the first item, it has to do with financing. Not everyone is aware of this, but banks aren't as keen to lend on land as it would be improved property like a condo or an existing single family home. And the reason why is they see it a little more risky in the sense that it's not a roof over someone's head. So if they're going to lend someone money to buy a plot of dirt and to build something on it, they're not living there every day. It's not a roof over their head. So if things go haywire during the permitting and or construction, or if they run into money issues, the bank is going to be holding that land, and they're going to have a hard time with foreclosure, and it's going to carrying costs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the first thing you want to consider, and I'm going to elaborate on this because another item during that first consideration is not just financing in general, but VA loans. I can't tell you how often we get called from a veteran, and we love our veterans, by the way. But they have to be aware, if you're a veteran and you're listening to this, that you can't get a vacant land loan with a VA loan. One of the beautiful things about VA financing is that you can do 100% financing. That's what I love about it, and I wish I had that opportunity. But with that said, yeah, you can't get a land on vacant land for the reasons I talked about earlier. But not just that. When you do a VA loan, it has to be your primary residence. Like the government's not going to let you get a VA loan for an investment property or something that or second home. It has to be, once again, a roof over your head. So with that said, there are some new construction opportunities on the island where you can actually get a VA loan on. Some local developers work with veterans on that. If you want, or if you're interested in that, feel free to drop me a message, David at hawaiihomelistings.com. But that's some of the single family home developers, primarily on the west side of Oahu, but a lot of the condo builders in town, you can't really get a VA loan on unless you're a veteran and you've got a bunch of cash as a down payment. I know I'm going off at a tangent right now where this is all about land, but I'm just talking about the financing aspect for our veterans. And that if you're going to get a condo, a lot of those developers do what's called like a 5-5-10. They want 5% deposit and then another 5% after the public report and then an additional 10%. So you got to have at least 20% down if you're going to be buying, like, say, a new condo in town. So back to vacant land. So number two item I'd like to cover today is that in addition to financing, we do live in an island in the middle of the Pacific. So it can be very challenging on several factors, seeing a home to fruition. First off, labor is going to be probably one of the highest in the country. Materials is going to be one of the highest in the country. And our permitting process, I don't want to talk smack here, but a few years back, our building department was actually raided by the feds because that's how corrupt they were. They were not issuing permits. They're taking envelopes of cash under the table from Chinese contractors, et cetera, et cetera. So it's tricky to get a permit. You want to have a good, builder and architect, and the cost of not just the acquisition, but everything else. So if you're a cash buyer, it's going to be a lot easier because then you won't have to finance the land, and then getting a construction loan on top of that is going to be tricky. So that all has to do with the logistics of the actual build. So number one, we got financing. Number two, we have logistics and costs of build. And in the third item we're going to talk about today is how not all land is created equal. We are an island, and what keeps Hawaii beautiful and why we don't look like Hong Kong, I tell people, is that 93% of the lands in Hawaii are zoned either agriculture or conservation. So with that said, the amount that's left for, say, urban or development is just literally like 7% of the lands. We're going to have a lot more of that here on Oahu than you do on the neighbor islands. But with that said, so you're going to have all types of zonings, like if you're acquiring land and want to build, but I'm going to probably do things backwards, but the most restrictive is going to be what we call P1, which is Preservation 1. And that what happens there is that's a city and county zoning, and that kicks over the state conservation district. So if you see something online that's zone preservation, and kind of looks too good to be true. There's normally it's going to be really difficult to build on that land. And just for a little bit of historical reference, I sold 80 acres years back in Aiea for only $200,000. And I sold the entire ridge between Aina Valley and Hawaii Loa Ridge for just over $300,000 for 75 acres. So they typically go for a discount. You just have to be patient in the permitting process there. I do, however, have a oceanfront parcel of P1 on the North Shore. If you're interested, once again, send me a message at david@hawaiihomelistings.com. I'll put a link or video of that in the description below. But that's a beautiful 2 acres on the ocean. The challenge is zone preservation, so it's going to be a little bit trickier to get a building permit. Then you have P2, which is also kind of quote unquote conservation. It's just there's different restrictions on that. I won't dive into them all now. And then we've got all the different ag types of zoning, the most prevalent being Ag 1 and Ag 2. And then we have all the stuff that if you're really looking to build a house, what you really want to be looking for is something that's zoned residential. But just to break it down and keep things kind of simple here, on this island, we have R35, R5, R10, R20, excuse me, R75 as well. But the easy way to decipher those codes, R is for residential, and then those like 3500 or R3.5 or R5 or R7.5, those are just abbreviations for the minimum amount of land you need in order to build a house. So for instance, R5, you're going to need a minimum of 5,000 square feet per dwelling. R10, you're going to need a minimum of 10,000 square feet per dwelling. R20, etc. 20,000 square feet per dwelling. So, a lot of urban Honolulu has a lot of R5. Some of the, suburbs are going to have more of the R10s. Some of the valleys R75s. If you have any questions about any of this, once again, feel free to reach out and give me a shout. And then we're going to go into this is the bonus round of what not everyone's aware of. So like being in the business since 2001, I can't tell you how often it is. I don't want to be the dream shatterer, but when people say, yeah, I want to build, got a piece of land. I just got a call this past week, that sweet lady, I want to get a tiny house and put on a piece of land. I'm like, well, what's your budget? Just $100,000. And I hate to say it and be the bearer of bad news, but that ship has sailed, gosh, at least 15 or more, 20 years ago. You're not going to find a plot of land where you could build a house on this island for $100,000. So if that's something you're looking for, I do have like a switch property in a sense. That's going to be the east side of the Big Island. That's going to be the only place really in the state where you could still buy something to build a house, like say under $100,000. And unfortunately, some of them are lava fields, don't have utilities, et cetera, et cetera. So there's normally a reason why or catch, you get what you pay for. And then also sometimes once in a blue moon, when someone's selling land, I've done some deals like this too, the seller might consider seller financing. Not every seller will, but if it's tricky or troublesome to get a loan on a property, sometimes the seller will offer financing. That's another kind of secret, quote unquote. And then last but not least, when you're acquiring land, back to financing again, is maybe a bank might not lend you money, but maybe you have other assets. It might not be cash right away, but it can be a contingent sale. It can be pulling money like with a HELOC or which for those that don't know, home equity line of credit, or pulling money out of an existing property. That's an issue with sometimes buyers from overseas, say like from Canada. We get lots of people looking here. And some of the foreigners, they have trouble getting a loan here without credit established in the States. So often what they'll do is pull money out of a property they already own elsewhere. Speaking of Canadians and land, I've got a listing coming up. It's down the pipe, of a Canadian owner. He's got some land to sell, but yeah, once again, shoot me a message if you got some interest in that. But in the meantime, I hope you found value in this video, found it informative. If you like what I say, feel free to hit the like button or subscribe to this channel. And then if you have any questions about raw land, here on Oahu or other parts of the state, I have great connections with other brokers on the neighbor islands. Or you're just looking for a house or VA financing, etc. Like, this is what I do for a living. And I can be reached at 808-371-3509. Mahalo and have a great day.